So this is the last topic in the viewer, and this topic actually it is given in New Bailey and Love because this is more important, particularly in medicine. But sometimes in the clinical examination, you will be kept lump abdomen, that is hepatosplenomegaly. So in such case, what are the various clinical signs of chronic liver failure? We must able to tell in the general examination. We must examine the patient above, from above downwards, what are the various clinical signs of acute or chronic liver failure. So that's why I want to complete this topic that is given in Bailey Law. And another most important thing is liver trauma. That is also commonly asked, what are the complications of liver trauma and what are the important investigative procedures. That is radiological investigations that can be done in case of acute or chronic liver failure. Right. So acute and chronic liver failure, the clinical signs of impaired liver function, they depend upon the degree of liver dysfunction and also the onset. What is the method of onset? Is it acute or chronic in onset? Sorry. And causes of acute liver failure, because in medicine it is given, and in Bailey Law latest edition also they have given some tables. These tables are very, very important, and you must always read these tables because these are the questions asked in the NEET examination. And causes of acute liver failure, that is viral hepatitis. So viral hepatitis, when it is fulminant hepatitis, it leads to acute liver failure. And some of the drugs, particularly halothane, general anesthesia, and post-operatively the patient develops jaundice, and anti-tuberculous drugs like isoniazid, rifampicin, and some of the antidepressant drugs and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, even sometimes post-operatively for relief of the pain. If you give even a single dose, some patients they develop acute liver failure. And another thing is valproic acid and paracetamol overdose. So the dose of the paracetamol in a 70 kg man is, you must give not less than 3 grams per day. And some mushroom poisoning, and in case of shock, whatever may be the cause of the shock, the patient may develop acute liver failure and multi-organ failure. And sometimes I already told Budd-Chiari syndrome, which is very, very important, particularly seen in young patients, where there is thrombosis of the hepatic veins that leads to acute liver failure. And Wilson's disease, I already told, in case of hepatocellular carcinoma, and fatty liver of pregnancy, that also leads to acute liver failure. And what are the clinical features of acute liver failure? So in early stages, usually we will not see in early stages, there are no signs at all. But with the severe dysfunction, I already told, because all liver function tests to become abnormal, 70% of the liver tissue get damaged. So liver is one organ which contains a lot of reserve. So abnormal liver function tests, they rarely appear unless 70% of the liver get damaged. So the evidence to two important clinical signs of chronic liver failure, that is clinical jaundice and hepatic encephalopathy. These are the neurological manifestations of hepatic failure. And liver flap, that is very, very important. Patient is having drowsiness, confusion, and coma. And what is the treatment of acute liver failure? That is, it is mostly dealt in medicine, but I want to tell some of the important points as a supportive therapy for acute liver failure. That is fluid balance, electrolyte balance, acid-base balance. And another most important thing is because liver contains about 750 grams of glycogen, so blood glucose monitoring is very, very important. and nutrition has to be maintained, because I already told, whenever there is liver dysfunction, the patient also develops renal dysfunction. That is called hepatorenal failure. So it requires hemofiltration and respiratory support, that is ventilatory support, and continuous monitoring and treatment for cerebral edema, because it leads to renal function, impaired renal function, as well as liver function. So the patient may develop cerebral edema, and treatment of infections, particularly bacterial as well as fungal infections. And mortality, even with best supportive treatment, the mortality in acute liver failure is about, it is 50% in acute liver failure. And what is the role of liver transplantation? Because now in corporate hospitals, liver transplantation is done routinely. It costs about 50 lakhs. But what is the role in liver transplantation in case of acute? So the results are usually poor, but when compared with liver, that is liver transplantation in chronic liver disease. And this is the question asked in the NEET examination. That is, what are the King's College selection criteria for liver transplantation in acute liver failure? This was the question asked in the last examination of NEET. So these criteria, King's College selection criteria, are used for liver transplantation in acute liver failure. So these are the criteria. It should be non-V, allothen, idiosyncrasic, and it is more than 7 days jaundice before encephalopathy, and this is prothrombin time, bilirubin. So these are the criteria that are taken for transplantation in acute liver failure. And coming to the chronic liver disease, this is very, very important for your clinics. Particularly, this is very, very important. So in the general examination, what you have to look for is, number one, patient is lethargic, dull, and there is clinical evidence of jaundice. There is inability of the liver to metabolize bilirubin, and there will be hyperdynamic circulation, because liver is damaged. So as the liver function gradually decreases, it leads to hyperdynamic circulation. So what are the clinical evidence of hyperdynamic circulation? Number one is high cardiac output and a large pulse volume, and there is low BP, and the extremities are warm. And coming to the general examination, another thing is, there is a patient is suffering with the fever. So what is the cause of the fever? That is because of bacterial infection. The patient is more prone for infection. That's why you have to give prophylactic antibiotics. And there is cytokine release from
Sir, not audible, sir.
Unmute or
Okay. Is it audible?
now it is audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right.
Yes, sir.
Right. Next, coming to the that is contrast enhanced ultrasound. It helps to differentiate normal liver parenchyma from solid tumors of the liver. And coming to the CT scan, that is computed tomography, that is spiral CT. It has increased the accuracy in the diagnosis of liver lesions, particularly malignant lesions. And contrast enhanced CT, it provides fine details of the liver lesions which are less than 1 centimeter in diameter. So this is the investigation of choice for diagnosing secondaries in the liver which are less than 1 centimeter in size. And oral contrast enhanced CT, that is by giving both IV and oral, you can diagnose any tumors, that is in case of carcinoma stomach and carcinoma of the pancreas, or any secondaries in the porta hepatis, that is hilum of the liver. You can diagnose any enlargement of the porta hepatis lymph nodes by giving oral contrast. And small primary liver cancers can be detected by early arterial phase of intravenous CECT. I already told this point in hepatocellular carcinoma, and also in case of inflammatory lesions, that is in liver abscess, it shows a rim enhancement with intravenous contrast CT scan. And hemangiomas, this is also I told it gives late venous enhancement by giving contrast enhanced CT. And CT is having high accuracy in staging and deciding the resectability of the liver tumors. So before planning for resection, it gives exact staging, and we can plan for resectability. And we also diagnose local and distant metastasis with the CT scan. And the more main disadvantage of CT scan is it cannot diagnose peritoneal metastasis, which can be diagnosed only by diagnostic lab. And MRI, this is a very useful investigation, and it is having least complications or side effects, because CT is exposure to X-rays, but MRI, there are sound waves. So it is superior to CT in identifying liver lesions and detecting small liver metastasis. But by using liver specific contrast, this also I told in the last class, by telling liver tumors, which is taken up by the hepatocytes, and it helps in differentiating hepatocellular carcinoma from regenerative nodule, that is called focal nodular hyperplasia, which can be easily differentiated by MRI scan by giving liver specific contrast by orally or intravenously. And it is MRCP, that is it is most useful, particularly it is not having any complications of ERCP. So it is a non-invasive investigation, and it is having as accurate as ERCP, but without any complications of ERCP. So that is the main advantage of MRCP. When the patient is not fit for ERCP, or ERCP is associated with complications, then you can go for MRCP. And ERCP, this is most important short notes for you, because it is both diagnostic and therapeutic. In obstructive jaundice, the therapeutic indication, that is endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreaticogram. So the therapeutic, that is treatment purpose, it is used for endoscopic removal of the CBD stones. After doing cholecystectomy, we can remove the stones in the CBD through endoscopy, that is by doing sphincterotomy. And in case of any infection, that is biliary tree, biliary sepsis, we can drain through the by doing sphincterotomy, we can drain all the infection, and also we can insert a stent, particularly in case of obstructive jaundice. But before doing ERCP, what are the important precautions you have to take is, number one, you have to do coagulation profile. You must give prophylactic antibiotics and explain all the complications to the patient, because when you are doing ERCP, it is an invasive procedure and the patient may get infection, that is biliary sepsis can occur by doing. That's why you have to give prophylactic antibiotics, and there may be bleeding tendency, that you have to do coagulation profile before doing ERCP. Another most important complication of ERCP is it leads to acute pancreatitis. So in addition, it may stimulate an attack of acute pancreatitis and cholangitis, that is because of the sepsis, because it is invasive procedure, and bleeding. That's why you have to do coagulation profile. And sometimes the sphincterotomy, which is usually done at the level of 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock position for dilatation of the sphincter. So there is every chance that there may be perforation of the duodenum while doing sphincterotomy. And next one is, another advantage of ERCP is you can do endoscopic cholangioscopy. You can introduce cholangioscopy and do endoscopic cholangioscopy, and sometimes you can visualize any tumors in the CBD, or very small biliary stones can be diagnosed by doing endoscopic cholangioscopy. And either endoscopically or operatively, it can be done either endoscopically, or sometimes you can do even peroperatively also to see any residual stones in the CBD. And what is mother baby ERCP cholangioscope? That it visualizes not only CBD, but up to the third order level bile ducts can be visualized. That's why it is called mother and baby ERCP. And biopsy and targeted biopsy can be done in patients with indeterminate biliary strictures. So when the biliary strictures are benign or malignant, we can do biopsy by doing endoscopic cholangiography. That is the advantage of ERCP with cholangioscopy. And endoscopic ultrasound, this is another most important and another important investigation that we can do in ultrasound examination through endoscope. That is called endoscopic ultrasound. It helps mainly to evaluate extrahepatic biliary tree, that is a CBD, and also lymph nodes evaluation at the porta hepatis and para-aortic group of lymph nodes. And it helps mainly to view the bile ducts, ampulla, pancreas, and liver hilum. So all these can be assessed by doing endoscopic ultrasound. Any tumors in the pancreas, any ampullary carcinoma, and bile duct strictures, whether they are benign or malignant, and hilum of the liver, where we can see some of the enlargement of the porta hepatic lymph nodes, we can diagnose. And there are two types of endoscopic ultrasound, that is radial, which provides 360 degrees of image, and linear endoscopic ultrasound. It views only in the plane of the scope, that is only in one plane. And another main advantage of endoscopic ultrasound is you can take a needle biopsy even though it is inaccessible. The advantage of ultrasound is without damaging the surrounding structures, we can take a needle biopsy. That is the main advantage of endoscopic ultrasound. And it is not also associated with the risks of ERCP. And endoscopic ultrasound, the most sensitive tool for diagnosing small bile duct stones. And percutaneous transhepatic cholangiogram, that is this is very, very important, particularly when you are unable to do ERCP because of the following reasons. So what is the main indication for PTC is, by ERCP has failed or it is not possible because of previous surgeries like partial gastrectomy or pancreaticoduodenectomy. And particularly the PTC is indicated for relief of jaundice in patients with obstructed bile duct. So when the bile duct is completely got obstructed, the patient is having obstructive jaundice, and where it is not possible to enter into the CBD through the ampulla of Vater, then because of any tumors in the hilum of the liver, so where it is not possible to enter into the CBD, this is PTC is very, very useful, because you can introduce a needle percutaneously, and at the same time you can introduce even the stent also, so that you can decompress the obstructive jaundice So the patient gets relief of the jaundice. And laparoscopy, what are the indications for laparoscopy for diagnosis of superficial liver tumors and peritoneal metastasis? I already told, because CT, MRI both are unable to diagnose peritoneal metastasis, and before going for any surgery, in case of carcinoma stomach or carcinoma pancreas, we must do diagnostic laparoscopy to assess whether it is any involvement of the peritoneum, that is distant metastasis in the peritoneum. And we can take biopsy also. And angiography, this is the last investigation, mainly done intravenous by knowing the vascular involvement. Particularly this angiogram is involved when you have to, main indication is when you want to treat arteriovenous malformations, or when you want to do therapeutic embolization for any bleeding sites, or transarterial chemoembolization for management of hepatocellular carcinoma. Then only you will do angiogram to know the anatomy of the vascularity, so that you can do transarterial chemoembolization, or you can stop the bleeding sites by therapeutic embolization and treatment of arteriovenous malformations. And last one, that is a PET scan. It is mainly used for diagnosis of lymph node metastasis and any distant metastasis, where we use FDG PET, that is 18F2 chloro 2-deoxy-D dextrose is used, and it gives a three-dimensional image of the whole body, highlighting the areas of increased glucose metabolism. Because when there is malignant cells, there is increased metabolism, which can be easily diagnosed by doing PET scan, that is positron emission tomographic scanning, and it increased glucose metabolism can be detected by doing PET scan. So these are the investigations, radiological imaging of the liver. So, liver trauma, PG also. Liver trauma, kidney trauma, spleen trauma, chest injury, ఒక 10 స్లైడ్లు ఉన్నాయి, అంటే బ్రైలీలో ఇచ్చాడని రాశారు. యాక్చువల్గా ఈ పార్ట్ లేదు, లాస్ట్ టైం చెప్పాలి.